What's up, guys? Welcome to 2.0 Takes for June 7th, 2021. Luckily, I'm just hosting today because I don't have to get in on these debates that these guys are going to do today. First of all, we got Grant Mitchell. Grant, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Ready to get it started.
Aaron Yadgaroff.
What's up? Doing well today. Getting ready to destroy some takes today.
There you go. Alec Busse.
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, Tanner.
And Ryan Ghodsian.
How's it going, guys?
How'd I do on the last name? Okay.
It was good enough.
Good enough. I love that. All right, so guys, this is a new show today. It's called 2.0 Takes. I'm going to throw the rules up right now. This is our take on, first take on any ESPN show that involves debating, except we're better because we're the Sports 2.0 network. There's rules: 2 semifinal matchups and a championship debate. So we're going to have Grant going against Aaron and then Alec going against Ryan today on our show. They're each going to get a chance to debate their topic. I'm going to throw the topics up in a minute here. The first speaker will make their case, and then their opponent can counter and make their argument, and then the first person does have a chance to respond at the end. These guys are excited. We're going to be debating a wide range of topics that are throughout the sports world, not just one sport, so it should be a very good show. You guys ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
So our first debate is going to be between Grant and Aaron. I'm going to send Ryan and Alec off screen. They're going to listen back behind the scenes, and then they will come back on and we'll vote to see who makes it to the championship debate. So see you guys in a little bit. I'm going to put me at the bottom here. We got Grant and Aaron. Big time debate here. You guys ready for your topic?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Should steroid users be in the Hall of Fame? Grant, you're taking the yes side of things. Aaron, you're taking the no. I'm going to start with Grant here. Grant, you got a few minutes to give your case.
Yeah, so this is a question that really has been thrown out there a lot, especially probably since the 80s and 90s, especially. I think it is definitely a valid question. There are valid points on both sides. But for me personally, I do believe that steroid users should be allowed in the Hall of Fame. Now, if you want to ask the question of is it necessarily ethical, that's a whole different thing. But if you want to look at just the performance, if we look at the most commonly thought of person when it comes to steroid use in baseball, Barry Bonds, right? Do we really think Barry Bonds was not going to make the Hall of Fame without steroids? He wasn't on steroids for, a while in his career, and he was still the best player in the league. And then you have other people who have been held out of the Hall of Fame who have just been caught up in scandals and allegations. They haven't even necessarily been convicted or proven to have been using steroids, and yet they are still withheld from the Hall of Fame. Now, if you want to transcend sports, look at something like the NFL. You had a Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman, convicted of using 4 PEDs. What did he get? He got a 4-game suspension. And Julian Edelman, if you want to talk about his Hall of Fame case, again, that's another topic. But people are still arguing about whether or not he belongs in there, even though he was using steroids. And you can look at the world of maybe track and field. One of the most famous track and field coaches ever said that if you get caught cheating, you just did it poorly. Everybody at these high level, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people at these high level athletics use performance enhancing drugs. And it's a sad reality, but it's just the way that science and technology has come along, that these people are doing anything they can to get an advantage. So again, is it necessarily the most ethical thing in the world? Probably not. But I don't believe that there should be a reason to hold people out of the Hall of Fame if they did take performance-enhancing drugs.
Great, Grant. So, Aaron, here you go. Your chance to counter and make your case.
So, for his point on people just trying to get better at the sport and stuff, and Barry Bonds being the best at the sport when he was playing, why is he trying to get even better? There's no point in getting better when you're already the greatest in your sport. Secondly, I'm just going to talk about one of my points is the title of Hall of Famer is one of the most prestigious things in all of sports, or at least in American sports, and shouldn't be tainted with the use of performance-enhancing drugs. So making the Hall of Fame is literally the pinnacle of any athletic achievement in American sports. So using PEDs, which is obviously cheating, is just a huge huge, terribly immoral thing to do in sports and just in general because you're just getting an unfair advantage. A reason a lot of people do it was everyone was doing it, at least in Major League Baseball, and like that's just not a good reason to do it, and like just to test out stuff, and it's just not a good reasons to do it. And finally, you gotta literally just consider all the other clean players who do it. So like the GOAT debate is like not really a thing in baseball as much as it is in like basketball or in football or soccer. It's just much smaller in baseball because of the PED stuff. There's like people who play like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, but Barry Bonds could have been the GOAT. Alex Rodriguez could have been the GOAT. Because of their PED stuff, they won't be up there. And like the situation in the 90s with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, that was one of the most ever entertaining parts in baseball. But the PED use just made it like go away. Nobody even talks about it anymore. If there was no PEDs there, it would have been such a more entertaining thing. It was super entertaining, but so many more people would be talking about it in our daily lives now.
Yep. Now I'm going to give you guys both a chance to go at each other for a minute here. Grant, we'll start with you, and then Aaron, you can counter him, and we'll just have a little conversation about this before we bring Brian and Alec back in to vote on our winner.
Well, Aaron was talking about, if you're already the greatest, why would you want to consider even taking performance-enhancing drugs? The simple answer is that if you are a competitor, you will do anything you can to get a competitive edge. You see people walking the line in every way they can, and sometimes they do indeed jump across it. Now, going back to my main point here, again, there's a phrase that if you get caught cheating, it's because you cheated poorly. I don't necessarily understand how this is any different than in times before, because it's just now that drug testing is better than it used to be in the past. So who's to say people in the 50s, 60s, 70s weren't juicing out of their rear end? It's very possible if you look at some of the absurd numbers that were put up. And then especially around the 80s and 90s, in pretty much all major sports, you will see that there is suddenly a cutoff somewhere. Now, that isn't the case everywhere. But again, as time has gone on, we've become better at testing for drugs. We've also become better at hiding it. But I don't think it's fair to say that nobody was on drugs until the 70s and 80s, which is when we really think of drugs hitting baseball.
Yep. Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree with some of those points. Like, we don't know back in the day, and there hasn't been as many good testing areas. But the situation is that nobody thought about doing drugs, it seems like, or wasn't even that big back then. So I understand there's a big jump in every single sport that like players are getting more physically developed. Basketball is a huge thing in that. Baseball, there's like players like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton that are huge guys, and they're not on steroids and stuff like that. But I understand what you're saying, but there's obviously areas that you could just get stronger. Like Judge hit like 50 home runs that one season, and it wasn't on steroids. Like I think Stanton almost won a triple crown, and he's like huge. So there's definitely ways to get around steroid and be the best player in your sport in 1 year, or at least more than 1 year.
If I can just say one more thing to that,
yeah.
Natural evolution just shows that humans are going to become more physically developed as time goes on. That's why people say people like Michael Jordan played against electricians and plumbers. Obviously, that's far from the truth. But if you look at the average athleticism of somebody in the 1980s and you compare it to the average athlete today, today's athlete more than likely is going to blow them out of the water. So yeah, you can get better and be someone like Aaron Judge, but the average athlete was nowhere like the average athlete is today in times past. So I don't think that's the best comparison, because you're taking two totally different eras with different, there's different monetary amounts put into the sport. There's different science that's available to help people grow and evolve their play over time. So I just don't think that's a great comparison.
Just going on off that, the comparison I was making is like because players like Mark McGwire, who look like a player like Aaron Judge now, took steroids in the 90s, and he is jacked and huge. And now there's a player like Aaron Judge who does not need to do that. So I'm saying like a player like Mark McGwire should not be in the Hall of Fame because of that. Aaron Judge, who is physically insane, and if he keeps going up his stats like he's doing every single year, I know he's very, very injury prone, but he should be in the Hall of Fame because he's doing everything legal and not cheating at all, is what my point's mainly about.
So great debating on both sides. We're going to bring Ryan and Alec back in here, and we're going to vote. We're going to sell the score and see who won. And if you're watching at home, let us know in the comments who you think won that debate, and we will definitely factor that into the consideration. So, Ryan, I'm going to start with you. What do you think, man?
Listen, going into the conversation, I kind of agreed with Aaron's side, but I honestly, I have to give it to Grant. He gave us some compelling points.
That's my guy.
All right. We got a favoritism going on there? A little favoritism? That's my guy. Do we have a deal working in the back room before this was going on?
Remember, if you get caught cheating, you just cheated poorly.
There you go. Hey, couldn't have picked a better side to defend then. Alec, are you going to pass it on to me to make the final decision? Or are you going to end it right here and send Grant to the championship?
So let me just preface this by saying I'm a huge baseball person. This is a debate that me and my friends have gotten into in the past, and I am generally on the side of Grant in that the guys who use steroids should be in the Hall of Fame, not just because of what he argued, but I do think that is kind of the side that I'm leaning on, and I would have to give it to Grant as well.
Well, you guys made my job easy. Yeah. I don't even have to vote on this one. I appreciate that. I was going to go with Aaron, actually. I was going to vote Aaron. I liked Aaron's take on it. I liked how he was talking about how guys now don't do steroids and they're putting up numbers just as big as guys in the past. So I was going to go with Aaron, but our panel sent Grant to the final. So now it's Ryan and Alec's turn. I'm going to send Grant and Aaron to the back. They're going to stay around, vote for this semifinal, and then we'll have our championship. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. See you in a few minutes. All right. This is a debate that we all love to discuss. Who is better, LeBron or Jordan? Alec, you're going to defend LeBron. Ryan, you're going to defend Jordan. Hope you're okay with that. Let's get right into it. Alec, take us away.
Yeah, so I feel like this is probably the most debated sports topic of the last 10 years. And I think as time has developed and now we've reached 2021, I think the debate has become even more one-sided in favor of LeBron James. If you look at their current stats or their career stats, LeBron has 3,000 more points, 3,000 more rebounds, over 4,000 more assists. He has a higher career field goal percentage, a higher career three-point field goal percentage, a higher effective field goal percentage by over 4%, and he has more career win shares by almost 30. So you combine all of those things, and individually, he's better at every single aspect of the game. And not only does I get the argument that like Jordan's a more pure scorer, but LeBron does it more efficiently. And I think that is just as impressive as being able to score in high volume. And it's the same in the playoffs as well. You see LeBron has more points, more rebounds, more assists, a higher field goal percentage, a higher effective field goal percentage, and a higher three-point percentage. So all of those things translate to the playoffs as well. And you can argue the whole, well, Jordan has the 6 rings and LeBron only has 4, and Jordan has the 6 finals MVPs and LeBron only has 4. But in reality, it's a team sport. And Jordan didn't win any of those things without a Hall of Famer by his side. In fact, he only won 1 playoff game without Scottie Pippen before Pippen got there. And he was never even over 500 in the regular season without Scottie Pippen on his team. So you combine all of those things and you look at the help that Jordan had in an era where a lot of people, I think, consider it to be the greatest era of NBA basketball, the 90s. I don't really think that's true. I think you look at the 1990s and you look at maybe 1-2 players being top 10 players all time with Jordan and Shaquille O'Neal. And in the since LeBron came into the league in 2003, you have LeBron as a top 10 player. Kobe's probably a top 10 player. Kevin Durant will widely be regarded as a top 10 player by the time he's done. And I think Steph Curry is probably in that conversation as well. And a lot of people consider Tim Duncan to be one of the best power forwards of all time. So you look at the competition level that LeBron was doing it against, it's at a higher level. He has done it with more impressive career numbers. And quite frankly, he hasn't done it with a teammate as good as Scottie Pippen has in his entire career.
Wow. I wouldn't want to have to argue against that one, Ryan. Yeah, I hear you're going to drop the hammer on him, though. That's what you were saying before the show, so let's hear it.
There are just so many points to refute. I don't even know where to start. First off, wow.
I think he got you a little speechless there.
No, I am a little speechless because it's just so bad take after bad take after bad take. Better era. LeBron was playing in the weak Eastern Conference. Who do you have to defend? The Toronto Raptors? Give me a break. Jordan had to go against the bad boy Pistons. He went against the Pacers. He had to beat the Utah Jazz with Karl Malone and John Stockton, one of the best point guards of all time. He went against Gary Payton, Sean Kemp. I don't know. It's just so many. He beat the Lakers, the Showtime Lakers in his first championship. And talking about help and teammates, LeBron played with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and he literally left his team to go win a championship. I think that's a little weak, to say the least. What else? I think honestly, you said LeBron is better in every single category. I don't even think it's close when it comes to shooting. It's not close when it comes to crunch time. You can make a case, yeah, LeBron's the best player in the first half. Okay, maybe the first 3 quarters. But in the fourth quarter, it's not even close. LeBron has to fake a cramp or an injury to get out of the game because he doesn't want the moment. I don't even think I don't know. It's just he just doesn't want it. Even in the finals against the Spurs, he had to be carried off the court because he got a cramp. If you think Jordan would go off the court in an NBA Finals game, I don't think so. Now put that all aside. 6-0 in the finals, 6 finals MVPs. You made my case for me. How many times did LeBron lose in the finals? Honestly, it's hard to count. Oh, that's right, 6 times. LeBron has lost as many times as Jordan has won. I don't know. It's not even close. It's pretty sad, honestly, that LeBron even lost in the finals on that Heat team twice, considering how stacked that team was. It's just, I don't even think Jordan's Bulls team was not nearly as talented as that Heat team. And it was just talking about eras. And by the way, the reason LeBron has more career point steps because he played more seasons. Obviously, you're gonna probably have more points. Jordan took a year off in baseball and came back and won a championship. Like, come on, like, that's pretty impressive.
All right, Alec. I mean, I honestly, after Alec went, Ryan, I didn't think you had anything. I thought you were going to be there stunned, but you came back. You did a pretty good job there. Alec, you got any counter for that?
Yeah, I do. So you mentioned a lot of Jordan's playoff opponents. In the 90s, the East was just as bad as it was in LeBron's time in the East. In fact, the East was really diluted in talent because of the expansion draft. We saw the Heat come into the East. We saw the Hornets come into the East. And we saw the Raptors come into the East. All of those teams came into the East. And because of that, the expansion draft came in. So a lot of the best players were drafted to those other teams. So teams in the East weren't as good. And you talked about the teams that Jordan had to beat in the 90s. He was 2-6 against super teams in the 90s. The Bad Boy Pistons, obviously the Celtics led by Larry Bird, and the Magic with Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. And he was 23-1 against every other team. The teams that he beat in the playoffs, he never once beat a team that had more than 2 All-Stars. Of the finals LeBron has been to, a majority of them have had over 2 All-Stars. You look at the Warriors, they had 4. You look at, that was when he was obviously with the Cavs. You look at when he played the Thunder with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Both of those guys were All-Stars. You look at the Spurs when he was with the Heat as well. Tim Duncan, we already talked about him as being one of the all-time greatest power forwards. I believe he was an all-star at that time. Tony Parker, also considered one of the better point guards of the last 10, 15 years. Emmanuel Ginobili and Kawhi Leonard are obviously no slouches. And that was when Kawhi was young and still coming up in his career and was not even at his prime yet. And he was considered an all-star and a rising star. And there's still people who consider him to be the best player in the NBA today. So LeBron's played better teams in the finals than the Clyde Drexler by himself Portland Trailblazers or the Utah Jazz with Karl Malone and John Stockton. Neither one of those guys they didn't have a third piece. Whereas Jordan had Scottie Pippen for that second three-peat, and he also had Dennis Rodman. So he had 3 Hall of Famers. And you want to talk more about the East? That's fine with me because no other team in the East has more than 1 Hall of Famer from the 1990s than the Chicago Bulls. And they had 3 for the second three-peat, and they had 2 of them for 2 of the three-peats. So I don't really think that the whole LeBron played against lesser competition in the East is valid when you look at the fact that the East, every other team in the East had a combined one Hall of Famer.
Do you know why those players didn't get as much recognition as they are today? Because Jordan put them in the ground. That's why. They didn't even have to stand a chance. That's exactly why they didn't have as much. The entire 90s, the 2000s, everyone's saying, like, Jordan just destroyed that whole era in the 90s. Like, they had no chance. That's why players like John Stockton and Karl Malone don't get as much praise as they should, to be honest. Or players like Clyde Drexler or Reggie Miller or Charles Barkley or Penny Hardaway. All these guys are all-time greats. It's just they're not even at the same level as Jordan. Also, you didn't bring up the point about faking injuries. And you didn't bring up the point about bricking shots in the biggest moments or turning over the ball or crying in the locker room, or I don't know. You can just go on and on and on. They're just so – you didn't bring up those points because you know that there's no argument to defend it. It's just there's just a little something in that chest that Jordan was born with and LeBron just doesn't have – he grew into, but he was not born with him when he came into the league. Like I said, he had to leave the Cavs in order to join a stacked Miami Heat team to win a championship, and he lost first to a completely completely unmatched Dallas Mavericks team who had no business winning that title. They didn't stand a chance on it, especially on paper. They also lost, like you brought up the Spurs with Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. Let's be honest. Duncan and Parker at that stage in the career were on the downcline. You can say that in 2007, when they swept the Cavs with LeBron, that, yeah, they were in their prime. I understand, but LeBron couldn't even get a game off of them. That's another whole subject. But, yeah, I mean, and LeBron, like, Kawhi locked down LeBron as a puppy in the finals, and he won finals MVP. So, I mean, if LeBron can't get past puppy Kawhi Leonard, then that's a whole nother topic.
All right, guys, I'm going to bring back in our voters here. We got Grant and Aaron coming back in. That was a really good debate. I enjoyed that one. I'm going to go last again, as usual. I'm going to start with Aaron. Aaron, who won that, Alec or Ryan?
I think Alec had a really, really good points. Like, his points are definitely stronger. I enjoyed Ryan's talk a lot more. There's much more trash talk, much more comedic stuff out there. So I think I'm just going to give it to Ryan because I enjoyed how he put his points out there more and more in a comedic way and stuff like that. But I think Alec did a lot of really good research and obviously knows his stuff about why he thinks LeBron is better than Jordan.
That's like saying that he made a nice debate. Like you're saying good job, but you weren't good enough. Come on now, Aaron. You can't do that, man. Grant, come on. You can't do that, Aaron. I guess no. There ain't no rules on 2.0 takes. We make them up as we go. Grant, are you sending Ryan to the championship? Or are you going to put this vote on me?
You know, I'd love to return the favor, but I've got to get to Alec pretty convincingly too. Ryan said a couple things that weren't actually true. The year Jordan came back from baseball, he did not championship. LeBron also has a higher what's defined as clutch field goal percentage than Jordan does in the playoffs. And I just felt that Ryan was very much trying to talk about LeBron being a baby, whereas Alec actually came with a lot of facts. So I'm going to give it to Alec there.
All right. I guess this one's up to me. First of all, great job by both of you. Ryan, I enjoyed your debate. I really did. I liked how you talked about LeBron being a baby. I do think LeBron is kind of a baby. I was having this talk with Grant earlier today. But you got to bring stats to the stat party now. Come on now. Alec, you're going to the championship. Great job, though, by both of you guys. Ryan is just, he's upset. That's how it works on 2.0 takes.
That's all you need to know is 6-0 in the finals. That's all you need to know.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. 6-0 in the finals. So, hey,
you don't need to dig deep in the stats to try to find something in order to defend LeBron.
There you go. Hey, you know what? That's what if anyone listening has a difference in opinion, let us know in the comments. Maybe that'll make Ryan feel better. But all I know is he is going home and Alec is going to the finals. We're going to have our championship debate right now. We're going to send Grant, or we're going to send Aaron and Ryan to the back here. I'm going to actually pop off too after I give the topic to let you guys go at it. I'll hop back in at times during this, but I want to see this one get a little fiery right now. So, championship. Should college athletes be paid? Now, Grant, you are going to be defending the yes side of this. Alec, you're going to be defending the no side. Since Alec just went, I'm going to let Grant kick it off here. I'm going to hop off. Go at it, guys. Have fun. And if you guys are watching at home, let us know in the comments what you think, who you think wins, and all that good stuff. Here we go. Grant, take it away.
So I want to kind of combine a couple of things that you and Ryan did in the last round. First, we'll start with just kind of some general statements about the whole topic. I think this is one of the most important conversations that's being had. We've seen there have been several court cases about it. We've seen a lot of athletes attempting to empower themselves. We saw a lot of college basketball players trying to raise awareness on social media. You've seen LeBron's whole More Than an Athlete campaign that he's been on. So I do think that this is a great topic. Now, if you do want to actually go into the numbers of things, I think it is pretty clear that college athletes should be paid for their services. If you want to look at the biggest event in college sports, which is March Madness, again, only 1 month of the entire year, the NCAA signed a contract for the TV rights for $770 million. And that's expected to rise to $1.1 billion by 2025. So that's just for 1 month of competing. Now, I'm a student at Virginia Tech right now, and I did some research for a story earlier in the year, and I found out that Virginia Tech is responsible for $1.2 billion in economic stimulation of the surrounding areas. So the fact that athletes are bringing in this much to their university and to their local economies, and they're not being compensated, I think it's very unfair. And of course, the main argument is that, well, they are being compensated. They're being given free tuition, room and board. You know, they get a nice coaching staff. They get nutritionists and all the other sort of amenities that come with being an athlete in the NCAA. But think of it this way, right? When it's Christmas time and you sit down to write your wish list, it would just be so much easier to get $1,000 from your parents than for them to go buy clothes for you and hope you like it. It's kind of the same thing here, right? If you're being told, yeah, you can go to school and we'll give you free advice on your nutrition, or you say, come play for us, we'll give you a $50,000 annual salary, I think that's much better. And of course, a majority of, well, I don't want to say a majority, but there's a fair amount of athletes that get into college sports simply so that they can turn professional and bring money back to their families. So by forcing them to go to college where they aren't being paid, you're not only holding them back, but you're holding their entire family back. So when it comes to this question, I think it is a very simple answer that college athletes deserve to be paid.
Yeah, so I think that this is obviously a really hot topic. We've seen a lot of states across the country start to implement name, image, likeness reform. I'm a student at the University of Illinois and cover Illinois football and men's basketball. And the state of Illinois has started to move towards that and potentially put it in place on July 1st, assuming Governor J.B. Pritzker signs that through, and it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to. Now, I think that this is a really broad question, and I think that there's avenues for it to work, and I think the name, image, likeness is a way for it to work. But since that's not the discussion that we're technically having by the question, I think it's important to recognize that where is the money supposed to come from to pay the college athletes? From the universities, from the NCAA, wherever it may be from. If it's from the NCAA, straight up, the NCAA can't afford to pay their college athletes. The NCAA is a nonprofit, and you pointed out the TV contract that they have for the NCAA tournament with CBS, TBS, True TV, and TNT. All of that money goes back into the NCAA and back into its member institutions, whether that's Virginia Tech, whether that's Illinois, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, USC, whatever school, they're getting money from that TV contract. So the money actually isn't going back to the athletes because it's going back to the universities, to help fund, their training facilities, whether that's for football, basketball, or the non-revenue sports. Same for their stadiums, same for different, whether it's nutrition stuff. You mentioned that a lot of athletes go to college simply to go pro. That shouldn't be the reason why college athletes go to college. Only 2% of college athletes make it to the professional ranks. And that's even less if you extrapolate it to individual sports like the NFL, like the NBA, and of course, Major League Baseball. Very few people make it to Major League Baseball. It's one of the hardest sports to make professionally in. So you have to think about where the money's going to come from. And there are avenues for college athletes to get paid already. It's not avenues to get paid. They are provided payment already through a stipend check that they get at the beginning of every month. And that can help benefit their living expenses. That can help pay for an apartment lease. Or if they choose to, they can live in university housing, which the university and their scholarship will continue to pay for throughout their 4 years. And even if they chose to not use it for an apartment lease, they still get their meals paid for, and they still get that stuff handled through the university. And I'm someone who is aware of this just because I have friends who are on different teams at U of I, and I see them go in the past year to Memorial Stadium where Illinois has their football games, and they're able to get free meals twice a day for lunch and for dinner. And there's enough money around for most people to get a box of cereal or to get some sort of Pop-Tarts to be able to get a breakfast or a granola bar of some sort, or those things are always offered in the facility that their teams train at. So there are other avenues for student athletes to be successful, and they are provided money already through their stipend check that they get at the beginning of every month.
Yeah, I agree about the whole topic of where does the money come from. You are right in saying that it goes back to the universities. So I don't think that it's necessarily incumbent upon the NCAA to dole out or to allocate the money. I do, however, think that the NCAA and the individual participating universities should have a contract which says that, just like when we give this money back, a certain amount goes to your infrastructure, a certain amount goes to the coaches and their wages. There should be a separate category for the athletes. And again, you were right in saying that a minority of college athletes actually end up turning pro. But, that doesn't mean that the athletes shouldn't be repaid for their services while they are there. If you go to a job and you far and away exceed expectations, you're a top performer on one of the top performing industries in the entire country, then why should you accept just not receiving your salary? And you mentioned that the athletes can go to get a couple of free meals, which is absolutely true. But you also said that, there should be enough money to scrape around Pop-Tarts or a bowl of cereal. Is that really the baseline? Is that what we should be aiming for here? If you look at how many millions and millions of eyes are on these college sports and how much money they get from ticket sales, jersey sales, memorabilia, the TV contracts, the fact that the university gets to claim all of that money and then dole it out to other areas away from the people that are making it, I just think that's highly immoral and very much against what we describe as the American dream. It's said if you work hard, you get to play hard. You're rewarded for what you do. But that's not the case in the NCAA right now. And I think that you're seeing it from a ton of college athletes who are coming out and being vocal with their experiences. There was a YouTuber who was supposed to be a kicker in college, and he continued to upload to his YouTube channel, and the NCAA said he's in violation. You have to delete your extremely popular channel if you want to compete in the NCAA. And if those things have nothing to do with one another. So I just think the whole system as it is right now is very unethical, and I do not agree with it.
I think what's also really important to point out here is if you're not following the name, image, likeness route, which in our discussion, we're not focusing on that, it's hard to understand where the dollars are going to come from for the non-revenue sports. I mean, at most universities, there are an overwhelming majority of sports that don't bring in revenue for the athletic department or for the university. And in the past 10 years, I can say this for a fact, covering Illinois athletics and covering Illinois football, that Illinois has actually lost money on their football program. And of course, Illinois is not one of the premier football programs in the country. They're one of the 3 bottom programs in the Big Ten. But if they're losing money on football, that's their most high, that's the program that they have to put the most money into because it's the biggest. But if they're not getting money out of it, where are they supposed to or if they're not profiting off of it, I should say, where are they supposed to get the money to pay the college athletes for the jersey sales, for the ticket sales, for other avenues that they're making revenue off of the sport? And not just for football, how do you pay the women's soccer team, the gymnasts, the wrestlers, the swimmers? Those sports are costing universities money across the board. And if they can't pay football players or men's basketball players, how are they going to make it fair and pay the student athletes who are in the Olympic sports who aren't bringing in revenue for the university at all? And I think that that's what makes this conversation really difficult, with the universities or the NCAA having to pay, or state governments, if you wanted to throw that in there as well, having to pay student athletes a salary, because there quite frankly isn't money for that. And at the end of the day too, schools are supposed to be equal opportunity, equal for everyone. That's why we have Title IX in place for women's sports. And that's why each university has the same or more than equal opportunity for women to be involved in athletics as they do the men. And let's be completely honest, women's sports aren't bringing in the revenue that men's basketball or football are bringing in. So you have to be able to find a way to make it fair for not only Olympic athletes, men and women, but women's sports in general, to be able to make money and profit off of being involved in college sports. I think that that's what makes this really difficult. And if the colleges and the governments or the NCAA is paying for those things, there isn't enough dollars to go around to make any sort of significant impact for student athletes to actually benefit from playing college athletes financially.
Well, that's why this whole conversation is so difficult, right? It's because where does all the money come from? And if it were to operate in this system, you mentioned U of I's football team not returning a profit. I don't know if you said it was this year or in recent years, whatever the case may be. I think that there should be a mandatory baseline, and you should figure out your minimum spending for the program. Then based on that, the profit level that comes back in, you dole that out and allocate that amongst the sports according to the amount of money that they bring back in. So if, you brought up weightlifting as an example, Olympic weightlifting, if that doesn't bring back any money, then it's just like if you had opened your own business on the side of the road and nobody bought anything, then you don't get any money. But if you're on the football team, even if the football or the athletics department is spending a ton of money on stadium and locker room renovations, and maybe your profit margin is in the negative, that doesn't mean that they didn't return a substantial gain. Like Virginia Tech is undergoing a $400 million basketball stadium renovation. But does that mean that the athletes are going to lose $400 million next season? No, of course not. It just means that the university set out with a goal to do this, and this is going to set them back. So looking at it from purely a net profit margin, again, I also just don't think that's the fairest way to do it, because the athletes are returning money for their services. It can just get overshadowed if the athletics department is spending in a different way.
So you kind of mentioned Olympic sports. You used weightlifting as an example, and I don't know if Virginia Tech has a weightlifting program or not. University of Illinois doesn't have a weightlifting athletics team. If those athletes aren't being paid in college, what incentive is there for kids growing up to want to play those sports that don't bring in revenue? You'll see sports lose participation numbers at a much higher level than we've already seen across the board. I mean, we've seen so many kids stop playing football over concerns of concussions. Well, football is a great opportunity for kids across America to maybe find a new means for their family, change the financial outlook for their family. And if they're not able to make money off of football, they're not playing it over injury concerns and whatever. But Olympic sports have that same opportunity. Sure, swimming isn't something that a lot of people make it to the Olympics in, or the national championships in, or have these uber lucrative deals from Tier or Speedo for goggles and suits and bags and different other equipment that they may use. If they're not able to profit off those things in college when every other sport is doing it, why would they participate in those sports when they can go play basketball or go play football or go play baseball or hockey at like Minnesota or Boston University like Tanner's hoodie has on down there? Like, those are big sports at those schools, and those sports may bring in revenue at those schools. And if you're making money in those sports in college, why would you choose to go do something like weightlifting or water polo that isn't going to bring in a profit for you during your 4 years as an undergraduate, or I guess your 5 years as a student athlete that the NCAA grants you.
Yep. I'm going to cut you guys off there. I'm going to cut you guys off. I think we made a lot of good points there. I'm going to bring Aaron and Ryan back in here, and we're going to settle this for all. Who wins the first episode of 2.0 Takes on the Sports Network channels, or Sports 2.0 Network's YouTube channel? So, Ryan, since you know what, the fans love you, Ryan, already. I mean, look at this. We got 100% agree with Ryan YouTube comment on there. So I'm going to let you go first because the fans are upset that you lost. Who wins this? And you got to take everything out of the equation, you know, past biases from the last rounds and all that, and just vote on who won this round.
Well, before I give my vote, I just wanted to shout out Rachel. That I thank you. I appreciate it. And Aaron as well. I appreciate it. Anyway, I got to side with Alec on this. I think that it's, first of all, I think going to college in general is more about when it comes to athletics, it's more about getting yourself ready for the pros and doing everything you can to make it. But there's also academics, and when you're paying your students, they're just going to be focused on the money. They're not going to care at all about their academics. And I know a lot of athletes don't, to be completely honest, but if you give them money, that's just going to disincentivize it even more. And also, Alec made a good point. Where are you going to get the money from? How are you going to pay male athletes versus female athletes, Division I versus Division III? It just creates a lot of issues, which is why I agree with Alec.
All right, one for Alec. Aaron, what do you got?
So this is actually something I'm really passionate about this, and I'm usually a big supporter of they should be paid. But through this whole, I guess we'll say argument or conversation we had, I think Alec countered Grant's points really, really well with a lot of stats, a lot of great information. So I think just by this, I have to give it to Alec. But I am very pro college athletes should be paid.
All right. I guess that makes my job easy. Alec, you're the champion. Congratulations. I like what you said as well. I think, you talked about football being a revenue sport. And if you're going to pay football and basketball, you kind of got to pay everyone else and keeping it fair. And I do believe athletes should be paid in some capacity. But again, you got to think about it. Football and basketball are the only sports making money in some schools, not even every school in the country. And you got to pay everyone else because everyone's working just as hard, even though they might not be reaping the financial benefits for the university. So, Alec, great job. How does it feel to be the first champion of 2.0 Takes?
It feels pretty good, actually. I was surprised that I came in here and won. I know a lot of people in the chat were saying that I shouldn't even have gotten out of the first round for the LeBron-Jordan debate, but I do feel like I deserve to get that one. I don't know if I deserve to win. The college athletes deserve to be paid. I generally do think that in America, people should be able to capitalize off of their hard work and benefit from it. But with this conversation being strictly dedicated to college athletes being paid, I think it was easier to argue a lot of the logistical sides that I was able to make points of. Now, if you want to throw in the name, image, likeness side, I'm going to side with the other people in the show and say that college athletes should be able to benefit off that area. But that's another conversation for another day. And I appreciate you guys for having me on. It was a good time.
Great. So that was Alec, Busse, Aaron Yadgaroff, Ryan, Ghodsian. I think I got it better that time. And then your runner up for the day, Grant Mitchell. Guys, thanks for joining me. These guys will be familiar faces on the Sports 2.0 Network YouTube channel moving forward. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Got a lot of great shows. 35 this week now remaining, but we got a lot of great content on there. So thanks for joining me, guys. Everyone have a great day, and we will talk to you soon for another video.